Welcome, everybody. We're going to call our meeting to order with a roll call from our city clerk.
Thank you. The record shall reflect that all members are present with the exception of Councilmember Green.
All right, and at this time we have we'll go to a pledge of allegiance led by Councilmember Dan O'Donnell.
Please remove your hats and you may begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we do have one presentation this evening, so I'd like to invite my fellow council members to join me at the lectern for that presentation. Tonight, we're proud to present a proclamation declaring October 2024 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the city of Vista. And we're going to present this certificate to Maria Trinidad in the Vista Community Clinic and Community Clinic Manager Edith Ortiz. So if you're here with us, come on down, and I'd like to present this proclamation to you. And our proclamation reads, whereas October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, an annual campaign to raise awareness using pink ribbon imagery, which aims to offer support for those courageously battling this disease, to recognize the many survivors, their supporters and loved ones, and to honor those who lost their lives to this disease. Whereas breast cancer affects both men and women, and whereas 1 in 8 American women in the United States is diagnosed with breast cancer at some point in their life. It is the second most likely cause of death for women in the United States. Whereas in 2024, an estimated 310,720 women and 2,800 men will be diagnosed with invasive breast cancer. A man's lifetime risk of breast cancer is about 1 in 726. One woman will be diagnosed with breast cancer every 2 minutes, and one woman will die of breast cancer every 13 minutes in the United States. Whereas early detection can be an extremely effective tool, timely screening mammograms could prevent 25% of all deaths from breast cancer in women over the ages of 40. Whereas 99% of all breast cancer patients survive when the disease is detected early, and in 2024, there are over 4 million breast cancer survivors in the United States. Whereas Breast Cancer Awareness Month is an opportunity to unite the community and spread the important message of early detection, screening, and prevention to women and men to prevent additional diagnoses or even breast cancer deaths. Whereas during the National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we stand by those who have been affected by breast cancer, and we recognize all who have joined their loved ones in fighting their battle, as well as the researchers and healthcare providers whose care and hard work gives hope to those living with cancer. Now, therefore, I and the members of the Vista City Council do hereby proclaim the month of October 2024 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the city of Vista, and urge our fellow citizens to join in the Vista Community Clinic in spreading the important message of early detection, screening, and prevention to women and men to prevent additional diagnoses or death in our community so that we may someday defeat this terrible disease. Thank you very much. Okay. ¿Sí?
Buenas tardes. Solo puedo decir gracias. Y estoy muy agradecida con la Clínica de Vista, que me dio su apoyo en el momento que lo necesité, cuando me descubrí algo en mi seno, y que me apoyó hasta que terminé y que todo está bien ahora y que aún me sigue apoyando. Muchas gracias.
I can do it too. If I can. I just want to translate her words. Muchas gracias. She said that all she can do is give a big thanks to Vista Community Clinic because in her time of need, they were there for her, and she's very thankful for the help.
Thank you. President will work conference as an appreciation on behalf of the city and being here. Thank you for sharing your story very much.
¿Quieren tomar su foto acá?
You take a photo with us? Yeah. As I put my pink ribbon here, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I think it's incumbent upon all the men in our community to encourage all the women in our lives to get those mammograms. I know that they're painful. My wife often doesn't like to do it. I myself lost an aunt to breast cancer, so this has touched so many of us. Thank you again for your courage and sharing. It'll bring us to the oral communications portion of our meeting. Any member of the public may address the council tonight on agency-related matters that are not on our agenda by requesting to speak during this portion of the meeting. If you're participating via Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature or press star 9 at this time if you'd like to speak, or you can submit a request to speak card to the clerk secretary here at the dais. And we do have Joe Hood tonight that's requested to speak. After the presentation. Oh, you wanted to speak on the item tonight. Very good. Okay, seeing no requests for regular oral communications, we'll close the opportunity for oral communication comment, and we'll proceed to item D1. We have one item on our agenda this evening, our Climate Action Plan implementation update. And then at this time, if there are any members of the public that wish to speak, they may do so by using the raise their hand feature by pressing star 9 or submitting a request to speak card. Speakers will be called upon after the presentation. Our assistant to the city manager, Josh Sino Cruz, will introduce this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and members of the City Council. I'm here with Cassidy McCarthy, our Climate Action Program Administrator, who will be presenting on tonight's Climate Action Plan implementation update.
Good evening. For some background on the Climate Action Plan, or CAP, the original CAP was adopted in 2012 and then updated in 2021. The CAP contains 7 strategies with 13 actionable measures related to them. The previous CAP implementation update to Council took place on October 5th of last year, and City Council has taken several actions to support the CAP. Earlier this year, staff created an implementation monitoring report to detail the progress that the city has made on the CAP. After tonight's presentation, staff will update the monitoring report, incorporating Council's direction and updating all progress on the measures. Then staff will publish it on the city's website for public access. Progress on a cap and reducing greenhouse gas emissions can be measured through a greenhouse gas or GHG inventory, which is a snapshot of the emissions associated with a community's various activities in a given year. Previously, SANDAG has provided cities with these GHG inventories in 2019, which reported on 2016 data, and in 2023, which reported on 2021 data. However, the data from the 2023 inventory was incomplete due to the impacts of COVID-19 on SANDAG's modeling system, and the inventory that was included in the 2021 CAP update was a baseline inventory for 2012. SANDAG has informed jurisdictions that they will not be preparing future GHG inventories for cities, so staff will ensure that an updated GHG inventory is included in the next full CAP update. Now we will go over each of the 13 measures in the CAP along with their goals and progress. Strategy 1 of the CAP is to increase the use of zero-emission and alternative fuel vehicles. The first measure of Strategy 1 is T1, transition to a clean and more fuel-efficient municipal vehicle fleet. The goal of this measure is to replace 47 non-public safety light-duty vehicles to EV or plug-in hybrid EV by 2030. Staff has confirmed that the city has 130 vehicles in its fleet, and of those, 87 are considered non-public safety, and of those, 43 of them are considered light-duty vehicles, with 20 being passenger vehicles and the other 23 being light-duty trucks. However, these trucks have additional equipment installed on them, which recategorizes them to either a midsize or heavy-duty truck, and replacing them does not help the city reach this CAP goal. Every vehicle in the city's fleet is on a 7-year replacement schedule, but if the vehicle is still in good condition, the city won't move to transition the vehicle right away. For this reason, 4 of those 20 passenger vehicles have been replaced with electric vehicles, and in the next fiscal year, 1 more vehicle is expected to be transitioned to an EV. Achieving this goal is in progress. However, reaching the final goal will be difficult due to the availability of adequate replacements for our current fleet needs, lack of current infrastructure to support a fleet transition, and that only 20 vehicles in the fleet meet the description in the CAP. Staff is working towards the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, Advanced Clean Fleets regulation that requires fleet operators to transition all of their non-public safety fleet, including heavy-duty and specialty vehicles, to 100% zero-emission vehicles no later than 2045. Staff has chosen the milestone option from CARB, which commits the city to phasing in zero-emission vehicles into the fleet between 2025 and 2042. So while the goal may not be met by 2030, the state regulations will require the city's fleet to go above and beyond the CAP goal by transitioning all vehicles, non-public safety, and not just the light-duty vehicles by 2042. The second measure under Strategy 1 is T2, to increase electric vehicle charging stations at public facilities with the goal of installing 20 public EV charging stations at city-owned facilities by 2030. Currently, the city only has 2 Level 2 chargers at the public parking lot on the corner of East Broadway and Citrus for public charging. However, staff is currently working on Capital Improvement Project 8902, which will install 90 EV chargers at various public locations. This includes 14 Level 3 direct current fast chargers and 74 Level 2 chargers. This project is expected to be completed by 2026, and once this project is complete, this CAP goal will be met and surpassed by 70 chargers by 2030. Staff will continue to keep council updated on the CIP project and to work on additional grants to supplement funding for the project. The third measure under Strategy 1 is T3, to require electric vehicle charging stations at new multifamily and commercial developments with the goals of installing 188 new EV charging stations at new multifamily developments by 2030 and to install 108 new EV charging stations at new commercial developments by 2030. The city does not have any requirements that exceed the state's requirements for EV charging at new developments and enforces the Cal Green regulations. The current process for tracking the number of EV chargers that are installed at private developments is based on permits being pulled through the Community Development Department. However, there's no differentiation between new or existing developments. Based on these permits, since 2020, there have been 63 chargers installed at commercial developments and 16 installed at multifamily developments. The way this goal is written, it is directly related to the volume of new developments that are happening in the city, and while progress is ongoing, the number of new developments will influence the ability to meet the 2030 goal. Staff is currently monitoring state code regulations to assess whether a city code update is needed, but new state code regulations are coming in January 2025. This was the last measure that was related to Strategy 1. Strategy 2 is to reduce vehicles miles traveled, and the first measure in the strategy is T4, to participate in the Sandag iCommute van pool program. The goal of this program is to have 18 van pools that either start or end in Vista. The iCommute program has been rebranded to Sandag Sustainable Transportation Services, but they still offer the van pool program through Commute with Enterprise. Currently, there are 13 van pools that start and end in Vista, and staff has been promoting the program externally to Vista's largest employers, as well as through the Economic Development newsletter, our Vista magazine, and internally with our Human Resources Department to provide this benefit for City of Vista employees. With continued outreach to Vista businesses, this goal is in progress and likely to be met by 2030. The second measure under Strategy 2 is T5, which is to implement the city's bicycle master plan, and it has a goal of installing an additional 12 miles of two-way bicycle lanes that are Class 2 or better by 2030. The bicycle master plan was developed and published in 2014 and created a citywide bicycle network with prioritization lists of projects that involved implementing new or improving current bicycle infrastructure. Since 2020, the city has added an additional 2.2 miles of bike lanes with the Townsite Complete Streets project. In addition, the next 1 mile section of Sandag's Inland Rail Trail that extends from Mar Vista Drive to Civic Center Drive has started construction, and once that's complete, they will start the 2 mile section from Civic Center to North Avenue. Staff has been working on improving the safety of current bicycle infrastructure by implementing 11 miles of green bicycle lanes since 2020. In addition, the city plans to paint more green bike lanes and implement protected bike lanes to the city's major roads throughout the city. The additional improvements will be implemented where Class 2 bike lanes already exist and will not be adding additional bike lanes in the city. Lastly, staff recently submitted a grant application to carry out a comprehensive update to the current bicycle master plan through a sustainable transportation plan or active transportation plan. The last measure under Strategy 2 is T6, which is to increase density and mixed-use development and has a goal of completing the Vista Palomar and Vista Melrose 47 projects. The goal is complete as both of these projects have been completed and finalized. In addition, the current general plan update for 2050 focuses on increasing mixed use and density within the city's core areas. This will make it easier for developers to add higher density developments to areas with greater access to public transit and amenities. Strategy 3 of the CAP is to reduce fossil fuel use, and the measure under this strategy is T7, require electric-powered or alternatively fueled construction equipment. The goal of this measure is to require that 30% of construction equipment in new development projects be electric-powered or alternatively fueled. Currently, the city does not have an ordinance or requirement for developers to use a certain percentage of electric or alternatively fueled construction equipment, nor does it have a policy on how to enforce the use of specific equipment on site. Staff is also unaware of any state regulations or requirements for developers to use specific equipment or other local jurisdictions that have such regulations. The status of this goal is listed as non-feasible because achieving this goal will depend on future advancements in electrical construction equipment, state law, and local initiatives. The city is already implementing this goal to the maximum extent practicable by including that developers need to use electric or natural gas-powered construction equipment in lieu of gasoline or diesel-powered engines where feasible in their conditions of approval. Staff will continue to monitor state laws and regulations as well as what other cities are doing to decrease emissions in off-road transportation. Strategy 4 of the CAP is to increase building energy efficiency and has one measure, E1, implement energy efficiency projects in municipal facilities. The goal of E1 is to complete energy efficiency projects identified in the 2018 energy audit that will reduce municipal facility energy use by 1 million kilowatt hour by 2030. The status of this goal is complete because all projects have been finalized and additional energy efficiency upgrades have been ongoing at all city facilities. Staff will continue to pursue energy efficiency projects with all new facility upgrades and will continue to research grants and programs that could benefit energy efficiency in other ways at city facilities. Strategy 5 of the CAP is to increase renewable and zero carbon energy and has 2 measures under it, the first of which is Measure E2, continue photovoltaic or PV installation at municipal facilities, and has the goal to install 400 kilowatt new behind-the-meter PV at city facilities by 2030. The PV installation at Public Works has been completed, and there's also a small solar array at the Senior Center. The Civic Center solar project is breaking ground next week and will add solar carports to the Alta Vista parking lot, and with that, 621 kilowatt behind-the-meter PV energy once completed in 2025. In addition, there will be solar on the Fire Station 3 project, as well as the city is installing solar streetlights in 66 locations within the city. With all these projects and staff's continued pursuit of additional solar projects, this goal will be met and surpassed by 2030. The second measure under Strategy 5 is E3, to join a program to increase grid supply, renewable, and zero carbon electricity, which has the goal of achieving 90% renewable or zero carbon electricity by 2030. As of April of this year, the city has enrolled in Clean Energy Alliance's Green Impact 100% renewable energy for all city facilities and operations, and enrolled all of Vista's residents and businesses in 50% renewable with 75% carbon-free energy. Currently, the city has a 96.4% participation rate, and with that percentage of the city running on at least 50% renewable energy, plus the 0.7% that have opted up to 100% renewable energy, it is likely that this goal will be met by 2030. Staff will continue to work with CEA to provide outreach and education to residents and businesses and encourage them to opt up to 100% renewable energy. Strategy 6 of the CAP is to reduce and recycle solid waste, and the measure within that goal is W1, to reduce solid waste disposal and increase recycling. The description and goal of this measure is to work with waste haulers to achieve 85% waste diversion citywide, which is equivalent to reducing per capita waste landfilled to 2 pounds per person by 2030. Currently, the city has a 25.9% diversion rate, which is equivalent to about 5.6 pounds per person per day. However, we are in compliance with the state law, which targets our disposal rate at 6.5 pounds per person per day. Staff works closely with EDCO, I Love a Clean San Diego, and the Solana Center for Education and Outreach, customer support, technical assistance, and much more for our residents and businesses. The diversion rate alone does not paint a complete picture of the city's solid waste and recycling efforts. Staff has collaborated with outside organizations for the annual Save Your Scraps workshop for providing technical assistance to our food recovery organizations, and staff does rely heavily on our contractors and partners to educate our businesses and residents about proper disposal, and will continue to work with them to ensure compliance with state law. Staff will also continue to explore initiatives to help boost the city's diversion rate. The final strategy of the CAP is Strategy 7, carbon sequestration, and it has 2 measures under it. The first is C1, increase tree planting at municipal facilities and public rights-of-way with the goal of planting an average of 100 trees annually through 2030, or about 1,300 net new trees by 2030. Since 2020, the city has planted 871 trees at various city facilities, public parks, and public rights-of-way. With the past plantings and all future plantings expected with future park and public space redevelopment, including the 125 trees to be planted along North Santa Fe, this goal is in progress and likely it will be met by 2030. Staff is continuing to work on new initiatives to help reach and exceed this goal. The second measure of Strategy 7 is C2, increase tree planting at new private properties with the goal of planting an average of 500 new trees annually at new developments through 2030, or about 5,500 net new trees by 2030. In 2022, the city updated its landscape manual to require that 1 tree per every 4 to 6 parking spots is planted at new developments. And since 2020, there have been 2,266 trees planted at new developments. So as long as staff continues to encourage and require additional tree planting where possible, it's very likely that we will reach this goal. While progress has been made on all the CAP measures directly, there has also been several projects that were started or expanded upon this past year that indirectly support the CAP measures and GHG reduction efforts. The residential tree program started in April of 2024 and has been very successful with over 300 applicants, out of which 257 have been approved and 236 trees have been delivered or picked up by residents. Residents are required to take a tree steward pledge, follow the Young Tree Best Care Practices, and send a photo of their planted tree to the city. The majority of the denied residents have been those that live in the county, but they are directed to other ways to receive a free tree or tree rebate through SDG&E or Tree San Diego. There's still around $30,000 remaining out of the original $50,000 from the budget allocated by council for this program, and funding should last us through Earth Month 2025. This program supports CAP Measure C2, private tree planting, and increasing Vista's tree canopy. In January of 2024, the Surfrider Foundation donated 3 ash cans to the city, and they were installed in March of 2024. Since installment, each of these ash cans has had consistent use with more regular use the longer they have been in place. Now the city is partnering with I Love a Clean San Diego to have an additional 15 ash cans installed in high foot traffic areas of the city. These 15 ash cans will be installed, maintained, and serviced by I Love a Clean San Diego volunteers. Staff utilized the support of summer interns to monitor these 3 routes in the city over a 3-week period in the summer of 2024, and each route passed a suggested location from either council, the Environmental Commission, or the Vista Community Clinic. This slide shows the locations that were voted on by the Environmental Commission. You will see that the city-owned ash cans are moved along Olive, and their locations will be replaced by some of the I Love canisters. Staff is currently working with the city attorney's office to complete an agreement so that the additional 15 ash cans can be installed at these locations. While the program does not directly influence the implementation of CAP Measure W1, Reduce Solid Waste, it does support a cleaner Vista and promote education on proper disposal of hazardous materials. At the end of 2023, staff sent a letter to all food service providers with a Vista business license, educating and reminding them of the polystyrene or styrofoam ban and the single-use plastics reduction regulations at the city. Both ordinances are complaint-based and require a citizen to formally submit a notice to the city that a local food service provider is not complying with the regulations, which they can do through the Access Vista app or through email. Staff works with the businesses that are reported, giving them education and outreach on the ordinances and information on the 6-month waiver if they are applicable, and gives them 30 days to enact a compliance plan. Again, while the program does not directly influence the implementation of CAP Measure W1, reducing solid waste, it does support a cleaner Vista as well as increased recycling as businesses transition to recyclable plastic or compostable materials. In 2024, staff initiated a partnership with the San Diego Regional Green Business Network through the San Diego Green Building Council. This program is a free consulting service that helps businesses adopt environmentally sustainable practices related to energy efficiency, water conservation, and waste reduction to help reduce costs of operation. Staff is currently working to establish a stronger partnership between the Chamber and the Green Business Network for better advertisement and engagement opportunities. This program promotes education and outreach to businesses on how their practices can impact the environment and supports several CAP measures. The e-bike safety and rebate program started in June of 2024 with the purpose of promoting safe and sustainable transportation and enhancing community awareness of bike safety. The city is working with the San Diego County Bike Coalition to conduct both virtual and in-person bike safety classes that residents can attend to receive a rebate anywhere from $50 to $450 towards an e-bike. Staff has also been working with VUSD to ensure that any students who attend these trainings receive their permit to bike to school. This program supports Strategy 2 of the CAP to reduce vehicle miles traveled. We're almost there. Staff has worked to boost public awareness of the city's environmental programs through several outreach events, the 2 largest being the Earth Day Festival in April of 2024 and the Cyclovia event this past weekend on September 29th. Each of these events were centered around public awareness of the city's sustainability efforts, as well as the programs the city offers for its businesses and residents. I am pleased to say that Vista's first Cyclovia event was very popular and had many excited and interested residents attend to enjoy the open roads and the educational booths. Since the CAP implementation last year, staff has been working on securing more grant funding for more CAP and sustainability-related projects. What is shown on this slide are not the only grants that have, well, these are the ones that only have direct relation to the CAP related activities. However, many, if not all of our grants have a climate action or environmental justice element to them. Staff is always searching for additional grant opportunities to help support all of the city's efforts and is looking forward to the Sandex Sustainable Growth Grant that opens in November, which will help the city with implementing a full CAP update or implementing additional CAP projects. The last notable CAP and sustainability-related program would be the Environmental Commission, which has the purpose of promoting and supporting the city's climate and environmental goals and advising the city council and city manager on environmental matters. The commission held their first meeting in April of 2024 and created a work plan of 16 projects which relate to 8 different focus areas. The commission has also received presentations from CEA, the city stormwater team, and city's arborists, plus many more. As the commission grows, staff will bring new programs and initiatives to the commission for approval and in turn, their recommendations to city council. Thank you for your time. At this point, staff is available to take questions regarding the CAP or related programs.
Thank you. And now we'll go to our public speaker, Mr. Hood.
Let me begin by saying, as an interested citizen, Cassidy is doing a great job, and what we're doing is okay. However, what we're not doing, errors of omission, are not okay. From what I can see, the CAP was approved a few years ago by a mayor and council that was trying to tick a box. We want to be able to say we have a CAP without really addressing the deep issues that the city needs to address. This CAP is currently completely inadequate. State law says in 2035 we should reduce emissions by 50%. You go through those provisions that Cassidy just beautifully covered, and there's no way we'll get anywhere near 50% reductions by 2035. Council is letting the city down. Further, I would like to ask you to think about what should be covered in a CAP. I passed out this outline. Topics: citizen involvement, power generation, sustainable transport, reduced building emissions, implement nature-based solutions, water projects, food and agriculture projects, reduce embedded carbon and climate finance. None of them was adequately addressed in the existing CAP. Some of them marginally, none of them adequately, from my point of view. Let me give you a concrete example. There is a website called Nature Quant. It defines on a scale of 0 to 100 the nature in the community. Where I live in Vista, we have a score of 8 on a scale of 100. 8. And their research says every time you add 15 to the score, that is, introduce more nature to the neighborhood, life expectancy increases by 1 year. So if we increase the score in my neighborhood to 68 by 60, we would increase median life expectancy by 4 years. Why are we not paying attention to that kind of thing? Why is our CAP not focused on people and the really meaningful carbon emissions that we need to address? This does not begin to cover environmental justice either. Sorry to be so harsh, but you gotta do better.
Thank you. I would remind our audience that during our regular meeting, applause is not in order. That will go to Councilmember Dan O'Donnell.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and for gathering all this information. I know it's a tremendous amount of work, so I just want to thank both of you as well as our Environmental Commission for the work that's been ongoing. I just had a few questions. I might have more later, but When we talk about the diversion rate in the organic solid waste, I know that you said it's kind of incumbent upon our partners to spread the word. Is there a reason why we're not utilizing our social media platforms or trying to inform the public at a larger scope? Because I have a little green waste bin, but I didn't even know about it until I actually went to EDCO and they explained to me what the program was. And so now my wife and I put our organic waste in every single week. But is there any plan by the city, or is there something we can do to implement greater knowledge to the public so they can utilize this program?
I mean, we can certainly put more on social media. We can, and I know we have our environmental newsletter that's coming online in the new year in 2025.
Yeah, so
That is something we can.
a recommendation I would make is if they're partnering with the city to do workshops or whatever it is to try and highlight this program, to maybe send our social media team there and then plug it on our Instagram and our Facebook or wherever else we have a social media influence, just to try and spread the word. Because I can tell you most people don't even know that this program exists, and it will severely cut back on our waste in our communities if we can try and get more engagement and interaction with it. My other question is, do we have organic waste disposal bins in our city facilities?
Unfortunately, we do not have them currently. There is the way to dispose of it in the dumpster room. That is something that we have been discussing with Public Works about implementing pretty soon here.
We know some people at EDCO, so I'm sure we can get them pretty
Oh,
quickly if we
yeah.
want to.
It's a whole education and outreach internally, and then some
Yeah.
people use them correctly.
For the tree program, it seems like it's been pretty successful, right? I know I'm going to get a tree for my new home, so I'm looking forward to that. When we talk about the new development and the count that goes towards our overall count of addition, do we take into account the net loss of trees that might have been scraped from there to begin with?
Not that I know of. I know that the city's arborists, we work with West Coast arborists, and they do keep track of that number, and that's why in the agenda report you'll see that there are those like number of vacant lots where trees can be planted. It is just our tree ordinance currently that requires, or all of those street trees are owned by the resident in that adjacent property. So the resident has to apply and want that tree and promise to take care of it for a street tree. But it doesn't relate to the residential tree program currently, no.
Got it. How many complaints have we had about styrofoam that have come to the city? Do we know?
I have about 20 so far, but we're getting more as the word gets out through the commission, and now it's available on the Access Vista app. So there's more coming in, and most of them have been really easy to mitigate. It's a lot of businesses who didn't know of the ordinance. So it's just, going and knocking on their door if you can, or phone call, email. But everyone's being very compliant once they know of the ordinance.
How often are we reminding businesses of the ordinance?
I've only had the ability to send out the one notification last year in November. So I was planning on sending another notification, a reminder out this November to all because there's new businesses who have started since last November. So I was planning on sending another letter out as a reminder to the old businesses and then for the new businesses so they're aware of it.
Are we doing anything to work with the chamber on that? I mean, it might be good to have. Yeah.
Yeah, I did actually do a workshop with the chamber in April, and they asked businesses to come if they were interested, and I did a presentation to the few businesses that were there. But I haven't done anything outside of that, though there is interest in exploring that.
Awesome. The only other two questions I have for you at this time, Inland Rail Trail was mentioned. Do we know a time frame for completion? I know that Sandag likes to say that they'll be done, but next thing I know, it's 20 years later, and we're about to get working on it.
When you say completion, you mean the whole thing?
I mean,
To
just
the
our,
end?
I mean our section in
Through
Vista.
downtown?
Yeah.
I think right now it's scheduled for 2028 completion.
So soon. Yeah.
I
Okay.
bet it's 2030.
The protected bike lanes in the city. Do we have a projected time frame for when those should be complete?
That comes to council for award of the contract at the end of October, and so we expect that project to start around end of November, early December.
Cool. Those are my only questions. The only other two comments I want to make is thank you for working with the ash cans, and I Love a Clean San Diego. I know that it's been, I think Surfrider, was part of that as well.
Yeah, they were the initiator, and now with I Love a Clean San Diego.
Yeah, I appreciate the work because cigarette butts they're all over the city. So I'm glad about it. And thank you to all our staff that came out and worked this Lake Hovli event. My wife and I stopped there with our little son, and he had a blast running around. There was a lot of people there. I think that as it continues to go on, it will be a larger success. So I just want to say thank you for everybody that showed up to that, and again, appreciate the presentation and all the work that went into it.
Councilmember Contreras.
Yeah, thank you so much for putting this together. I will say I know that it's not in order for the audience to be clapping during this discussion. However, I think the circumstances that your generation is facing warrants your involvement. So I really appreciate you all being here. I think, we need you all to be invested in the city and help us move together in a more sustainable and green way, because we have been going in the opposite direction for too long. And I will say, I do agree with some of the comments made by Mr. Hood, our public speaker, in that this climate action plan is a list of checking boxes versus creating a better future for Vista. And I think we can do better. I think we have a council that is much more active, a council that believes and understands that the climate is changing, that we're going to be facing extreme heat, that we're going to be facing a lot of different challenges, and we have the responsibility to move forward in a unified, better direction so that folks can have more green spaces, folks can have more renewable energy, that we can transition and have really good paying careers in the green economy. And we just have to do it. So I want to go through the measures. I made some notes here. So looking at strategy 1, zero emission alternative fuel vehicles. So at some point you said that we have to basically transition a lot of our fleet to zero emission vehicles. However, I'm concerned that we're not preparing for that infrastructure in order to reach that. I mean, the goal is, the timeline is getting more and more compressed. So where are we with being able to have the infrastructure to charge these electric vehicles that we don't have yet, but, we're going to have to convert some of these into electric or whatever other technology comes in the future. So can you just explain that a little bit?
So we don't have a plan specifically for our fleet currently, but with the CAP project 8902, 8 of those chargers, which are dual port chargers, so 16 actual plugs, will be allocated specifically for fleet use at Public Works. But that's all that we have so far. I know that staff is also, there's the consideration of the fuel station replacement, but that's in the future. We haven't gotten there yet.
It is concerning to me that we don't have a plan. Because without a plan, we will not get to our goal. So that is definitely something that I think, I don't know if that's on the council side as a directive to staff or what needs to happen. But this timeline is just getting shorter and shorter. And without a plan, we are not going to make it. So we need to at least start drafting some kind of a rough plan that will have an infrastructure that can accommodate the type of fleet transition that we're going to have and that we're going to have, right? So not only is that going to be, photovoltaic increasement, but also, and looking at storage, we need to be able to store the electricity as well. So do we have any kind of plan in the city that is forward-thinking, that's saying, okay, this is a goal that we need to get to with our fleet transition? And I'm hearing that we don't, but I'm just trying to make sure. Here's the goal that we have with our fleet transition. This is the infrastructure that we're going to need. And then this is potentially the storage of electricity that we need to make sure that we can, continuously charge our vehicles. And the other thing is, how do microgrids fit into that infrastructure? I know it's a long question, so I don't know who wants to tackle that one.
Hi, Imelda Huerta, Assistant City Manager. I just wanted to add a couple of clarifications. So the city manager staff have been working with Public Works and possibly an outside agency to look at our fleet and looking at our vehicle replacement program that we currently have in place, since we do have to replace it with electric vehicles. So we are looking at that. We're at the beginning stages of that to try to meet this goal. I know it is a very aggressive goal. Regarding the infrastructure, as you know, we do have the EV charging station project going on. I don't know if Greg, our city director of engineering, has any additional comments he wants to add, but we do have that project coming in place, and I think it's about 90. Okay, so 8 at Public Works and 90 looking at additional locations.
So we think we can meet this goal, but as far as like the transition into the full fleet by 2042, there's a whole bunch of obvious technological improvements that have to happen, which we're following. But statewide, that movement's happening. We are planning fleet-wide. What we probably need to do a better job of is plan for how we're going to power those vehicles and have the charging in place. I think Cassidy mentioned we have 16 going into Public Works. We'll just have to plan for at the time that we, get close to that, putting in additional chargers.
Yeah, okay, so here's my big concern, is that it takes money and it takes time. It takes staff time, it takes council time, and it takes time to construct. The longer we don't have a plan, the more opportunities we lose for getting grant money. I don't want to have to, I've been very successful bringing millions and millions of dollars to the city from your taxes that usually didn't come back through the state, through the federal government, and now we have partners, that are helping us out with this. I mean, we're going to get, photovoltaic here because of one of those grants. So what I don't want to do is, there's a huge opportunity cost here where we could potentially lose out in millions and millions of dollars that we need to be able to build that infrastructure. So what I would like to see is, hey, okay, rough estimate, we're going to need this much kilowatt, whatever, however you quantify energy for the type of fleet conversion that we're going to have. And we're going to need X amount of this level 3 charger, right? Maybe there'll be a level 4 by the time we have to implement this, right? But at least trying to show council at minimum the data connection between the fleet conversion and how much electricity we're going to need. Because then at least we can start planning the infrastructure build out over the next few, decades. And in the meantime, maybe there's money that we can go after to help with this plan, right? I think this is where our CAP, our climate action plan, is a critical document. We can't just use it as like, okay, these are the bare minimum things that we need to do. If we can be a little bit more specific in some of our strategies, our measures within these strategies that help us reduce the greenhouse gas emissions and this extraordinary amount of pollution that is generated, then we have opportunities to get grant funding because it's in our CAP, and we've thought about it a little bit more. So that's a huge change that I want. And this is going to be updated next year. Is that right?
We're waiting for the general plan update to be completed to double check that it's going to be a mitigation measure of the general plan update. And then from there, we will start working on the cap update. So it could be next year, it could be 2026.
Okay. So given that, I mean, we definitely need to build out this strategy for our fleet conversion, at least have a rough estimate. And I want to see that represented somehow in our climate action plan. Okay, I got to look at all my stickies here. Looking at requiring EV charging stations at multifamily and commercial developments, it seems like we're kind of short of our goal. I do recall we had a council meeting that was about a development next to Green Valley Mobile Park, and in that discussion, there seemed to be council consensus from a majority of the council to increase the percentage of parking and multifamily that was going to be EV, because we're also talking about, the guest spots. Some people are going to have EV cars, and, it would be good to have that kind of charging station. So do we need to update this then in our municipal code?
I think Joe Vaca, our community development director, looked into this issue, and he looked at the state code. You want to come down, Joe, and just give us a quick update where we're at? You're in the green today.
Thank you, council members. So in regards to the question, the Green Building Code does require a minimum threshold for EV chargers for multifamily projects that have 20 or more units. And we're actually on target to achieve compliance with that goal and potentially exceed that goal over the horizon. And furthermore, we anticipate with the updates to the Green Building Code in the 2025 edition, there'll be more additional regulations with probably higher thresholds.
Okay. I'm not someone who likes to strive for minimum, just in my personal life or in my council life. I'm struggling to recall what we were, maybe it was like 5% or something like that, but I feel like this is just something pretty easy for the council to move forward and not have to wait for the building code update.
So we can certainly do that. The building code update will happen at this point before we're able to bring it back to you, but we can add to whatever the code update is, and we can report back in January if that's all right.
Yeah, I definitely, because I think the sooner that we can do it, the better. And the other thing that I wanted to ask too is, and I don't know if this really is nested too well with this measure, but are we looking at e-bike charging and bike parking requirements? Because I will tell you, as someone who does ride a bike, it's really difficult to find bike parking, let alone to be able to charge my e-bike. So.
Yeah, it's part of the charging stations in the CIP 8902. That's going to be part of a component of it where they're going to have the car charging stations, and adjacent to it will be EV charging stations for bikes.
Okay, perfect, because I know I complained and asked about that before, so it looks like we were successfully able to roll that into. And is that going to be the standard moving forward, or is that something that you need to hear direction from council to kind of codify that as a standard?
As far as parks go, we would do that as a standard.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, let's see. Next sticky. Okay, strategy 2. Reducing vehicle miles traveled. Now, in our greenhouse gas inventory, is transportation the number one emitter of greenhouse gas emissions here?
Correct.
Okay. I think that we have a lot missing in strategy 2. Things that we're already doing. So I just want to start with some of the things that I see that are missing. So we don't have a TDM component, a transportation demand management. Some of our sister cities, like Carlsbad, they have a good TDM program. And in talking to some of the businesses in the business park, like Dr. Bronner's, they've already started like a van pool program, right? So that's been very successful. They're looking at, expanding it. But what I want to do at the city level is how can we provide either incentives or create some kind of structure where we do have TDM as a component of our CAP. I think more and more businesses could benefit from some kind of structure for TDM, and I mean, because we don't have it, it'll be a whole new component, but I would hate to see us be one of the last cities to have a TDM component. So I would like to see that built out and some ideas. Also, I've seen in other cities safe routes to school. And I don't see that listed anywhere in our CAP. I think the reason that that's important is, for example, the active transportation program grant that we're trying to get by Beaubier Elementary off Beaubier could be considered and is a safe routes to school design. So I think that we just need to be a lot more vigilant about how unsafe it is for students to access the campuses throughout Vista. And it is also a way to reduce vehicle miles traveled because, as folks adopt more e-bikes, I see more and more students riding them to school and after school, especially on North Santa Fe. Right? I'm super excited for the separated bike lanes that are going to be going in. But I would love to see safe routes to school represented in this CAP. Also, I have seen in other cities too that they have a goal for a certain amount of roundabouts or traffic circles. I think we're moving in the direction of having more. Potentially that could also be a strategy under reducing VMT. On the bicycle master plan, I see a few issues with it, just by looking at the wording. With the goal shouldn't be class 2. Class 2 is, paint is great, but it doesn't separate you from the vehicle. So I really would like to see us go for class 1, which is multi-use path, and then class 4, which is that separated bikeway. A reason that I think it's important to include that in our CAP is I would like to get funding for this because this is something that we've already started to do and we want to build out this network. So I don't like that it says class 2 or better. I think we should be going for, class 4 and class 1. I do though like that there's a number of miles as a goal, and I think that's important. Yeah, the inland rail trail is just taking so long. So, this is where the council can take action, and our timeline can be a lot faster than Sandag's timeline to build out our system of protected bike lanes. Okay, and strategy 5, I already touched on that we're missing storing energy. So either battery storage or some other component. We're gonna need to figure that out. Okay, strategy 6. I don't see anything about food waste on here. Am I missing that?
So the food recovery organizations are not really a part of the diversion rate, but that's not what's in the current cap.
Is that something that we've seen, other cities around us implement or put into their cap?
Well, a lot of the food diversion and food recovery, that is all part of the SB 1383 law. So I believe now that there's like certain cities that are currently updating their cap and they're wrapping that into it. However, since SB 1383 just started a couple years ago, not many cities have that in their current caps.
Okay, well, I would love to see that. We've had a fantastic presentation by Produce for Good and Plus Box, and they're doing food recovery the right way, and they're able to supplement so many families here in Vista with really good produce. And that's also something that I would like to see us get credit for in our cap, and be mindful that we don't have that in there, but it's totally up to the council to say, hey, that's something that we should add. And I do think that we should have that component in our cap. I am curious because it looks like there might be, I can't remember where I saw it, but some funding for us to create a urban forestry program. Can you go a little bit more in depth as to what that looks like?
Oh, so the pending ICARP Urban Tree Management Plan grant?
Correct.
So what we were intending with that application was to do kind of like a tree equity index, mapping all of the trees, similar to what kind of using what West Coast Arborist has already started and expanding upon it, to kind of give us a report card on all of our trees and let us know how they're doing, if any need to be replaced, if any need to be, they need an irrigation system, kind of a way to create a plan so that we would have the ability to have more shovel-ready projects. It wouldn't be necessarily doing mini forests or anything. It's just more assessing of what we already have and how to either improve upon it or adjust it.
On the maintenance of the trees.
Maintenance, and if there's any like needed planting, and again, that would be something that would be identified in that plan that we would get, that we could use that plan to apply for more grant funding to be able to plant more trees.
Okay. I think that's, and when do we know if we get this or not?
That one's a little tricky. We did apply for it quite a bit ago. We're still waiting to hear back from them. They initially said that we did not get the funding, but then they sent us another email saying that they were still working on dispersing the funding. So I can get back to you with that.
Okay, so if we don't get this, then do we not have any urban tree management planning?
We do have our work with the West Coast Arborists. That, like I said, it's a kind of a similar plan, but it's not as in-depth as what this would be.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and do we have any way for the community to do an urban tree canopy assessment, like citizen scientists? There's some cities in the United States that are able to involve the public. Is that something that anybody's thought about doing? It doesn't look like
Frankly,
it.
no, but I mean, we're open to it. We're applying for this grant. That was kind of our first foray into our own urban forest planning, but of course, we're open to whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
us to
trees
evaluate.
take so long to grow, right? And so the longer that we take to have a plan to maintain them, again, it's lost opportunity. So I would like to see us be a little bit more aggressive in creating some kind of urban forestry program and start to expand that. We can even bring in Vista Unified School District. And then if we don't get this grant, I definitely think there are already tools on the market, and maybe Mr. Hood knows a little bit more about this, but that we could assess inequities in the tree canopy and really figure out, hey, where should we be concentrating some of our tree plantings? And I'll tell you, these transportation corridors like East Vista Way, North Santa Fe, right, Beaubier, there's a lot of opportunity to provide shade for our students that are walking to school, or people that are walking after work, and all that kind of stuff. So I would like us to be a little bit more aggressive in planting trees and maintaining them. Okay, I'm almost done. I don't see, or maybe it's here, but it's just stated in a different way. But under, I don't know if it would be strategy 3 or strategy 4, but are we doing any kind of building electrification, decarbonization efforts?
So we did have the energy efficiency projects at municipal facilities, but that's basically as far as when it comes to decarb. We don't have any additional plans for that currently.
Yeah, our buildings are huge wastes of energy. So I would like to see us roll in some kind of building electrification and decarbonization strategy, either for future buildings and/or future and existing buildings. I think there might be an update of the state code coming through with that as well, but that's something that I just want us to be aware of.
Just to clarify, Councilmember, you're referring to our municipal buildings, not something to put in our code.
Municipal buildings, and then also, can we talk about beyond municipal and what that looks like? I know that there's certain case law right now on.
So yeah, that's what we were trying, at the staff level, we were trying to stay away from more what I would call draconian measures where you're forcing people to do improvements when they come in for other building permit issues, which is what a lot of these REACH codes do. But if council wants us to explore that, we can. So far, we've only been looking at this from the municipal building side.
Okay, well, I think municipal building and any building that we lend money to for it to be built. I think that our affordable housing, they're already doing decarb.
Yeah, so I mean, anything that we would put our money into, we can control that. It would be a code amendment if we wanted to do it for private development.
Yeah, I think that I'm not an expert on this by any means. I think the state might be rolling out some new rules on that, but for sure, I want to make, at least in our municipal and anything that we're helping to fund, we should ensure that it's decarbonized as much as possible. Plus, it's just better for the air quality for folks, especially if we're already looking in some of our, permanent supportive housing, affordable housing. You may be housing more vulnerable populations, and air quality is going to be important there. And then, one of the things that I'm curious of is some shared mobility, like some other cities have shared e-bikes. Maybe that might be something that our staff even wants. If there's some e-bike park, shared e-bikes here in the city, folks can roll into, downtown and get something to eat or whatever the case might be. I think it might be we could even do like a pilot program here at the Civic Center because we are so close to downtown, and then potentially expand that program. But I would like to see that here. And I totally agree, we need to install some mini forests. When it comes to like gray water and stormwater capturing, do we have any? I don't know if we're doing any of that in our facilities at all.
Oh, yeah, we capture stormwater.
Stormwater for the basin.
Significantly,
Yeah.
but gray water, we don't really have gray water. It's all in the sewer. Yeah.
Okay, and our municipal code, how?
If someone wants to do something with their gray water, we have provisions that allow that. It's really through state and county requirements. Health department oversees that, but you have to come to them and get a permit to show how your system's going to manage it.
Okay, so the city doesn't really have any interface with that?
No, or limitations for that matter.
Okay. We'll have to talk offline about that. I'm just curious. And I definitely think that we should have a master trail plan. This is something I brought up. I think that we should have more trail systems that go between our urban and our parks, right? And so they could even be marked really cool, and we can promote that. And lastly, I just want to say Cyclovia, it was awesome. I was there. I would love to see this happen at least on a quarterly basis, maybe, more than that. And I just need to know from folks if on staff, do we need to have some kind of budgetary assessment of what that looks like? Do we need an event planner that is like focused on doing some of these events downtown? But I thought it was pretty cool, and I look forward to seeing more. Yeah. And that's all from me for right now.
Deputy Mayor Melendez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Cassidy. You said so much. You covered a lot of pages, and there's been a lot of work put into this. So thank you, everybody, for all your work. Great work on the residential tree program. I've heard from a lot of folks that that's been really great. We want to have those private and public partnerships because the city does have a lot of land and public right-of-way where we can plant trees, but there's even more of an abundance of land on private property. And if we can support landowners to build up our tree canopy, that would be awesome. Would there be any opportunity within a tree planting program, whether it's a residential tree planting program or something within the public right-of-way, to not just plant trees, but also do like native shrubs and those types, lower level plants? Are there any possibilities there?
We do include pollinator plants in the options for what residents can choose for it's why it's called technically the tree and pollinator giveaway program. We do include those, and no one's gone for them yet, unfortunately. But it is also something that it's one of the goals of the Environmental Commission is to kind of work on a native plant and pollinator policy. So
That's
that could be
awesome.
something coming forward.
Okay, that sounds great that that's included. And then also want to say great job on Cyclovia. I think that it piqued people's interest, and they're like, what is this, right? They didn't know what it would be like, and it was just kind of freedom, right, for people to use the streets. And I kept telling people, we're shutting down the streets for this. We're shutting down the streets. And someone who's an avid cyclist, he said, no, you're opening up the streets. I was like, okay, yeah, it's a different perspective, right? I think it was great. I love that we utilized the AVO for the educational portion. I didn't realize that we were going to do that. So thank you, staff, for that. And I think that this could be as programmed as we want, and then it could also be as minimally programmed as we want, right? Where it could be a frequent or occasional event where we do have some monitoring, but it's mostly just shut down. It's great to have booths. It's great to have partnerships. I even spoke to Rachel with the chamber about, how can we get local businesses involved? I loved seeing folks having their bikes parked outside of the pub and outside of local restaurants, which was just showing, people were patronizing these spots during the Cyclovia event. So I definitely want those partnerships. But I also know that it is an effort to put on these events, and I would love to find a manageable approach where, we do need to have some monitoring when we're shutting down the streets. But the biggest benefit is people just being able to access that public right-of-way for their recreation. And so if we can do that more frequently, that would be amazing. But it was just so nice to see everybody down there this weekend. And then also great job on the tobacco waste, it's spicy, tobacco waste abatement. It was great to connect with the Surfrider Foundation, with Janice Jones on this, and to try to find some solutions. I know that I was really passionate about this because in my neighborhoods over off of Olive, we have a lot of folks that are taking a cigarette break and they're just littering. And so I'm glad to see that we have an expansion occurring. And I know that I've seen just anecdotally a improvement in the neighborhood from having the ash cans there. Of course, it's not perfect, but it's also good to know that volunteers will be servicing the cans, because I know that that was a little bit of a burden to the city previously. So not only is the program expanding, but we actually get more help to do it. So it really is true. I always say when you do more, you get more, and we're definitely getting more out of this program. Also, great job on meeting state requirements. That's the biggest thing, right, is that we are obligated per the state of California on a lot of these items. And we have to do the planning and do the work to meet the state requirements. So great job on that. But I do agree that we can get ahead of some of these issues. And if we're able to do a little bit more planning and work at the front end, and I really appreciate Councilmember Contreras' comments on just doing more planning for our CAP, because the state is not really providing any funding for our climate action plan outside of what we pursue ourselves. Is that right? It's not like they're saying, here are these mandates, and then here's millions of dollars to help you accomplish those. Yeah, so we're really on our own, and I really believe that planning is the path towards financing a lot of these programs that we are ultimately obligated to accomplish. So I think we're doing a great job meeting state requirements, but we could also make it easier on ourselves, and I'm willing to commit to more planning sessions on the issues that are within our CAP. So as much as we can meet those state requirements and get ahead of them, that would be great. I have a couple questions. With the $167,000 that we're receiving for the integrated pest management plan program, what is the status of that program now that we've received the grant?
That's Chris Arce, our Public Works Director, going to come down and give us an update on IPM.
Yeah, just a few comments on that if you could, thanks. And I am grateful that we received funding. I know that when I first brought forward the initiative for us to ban pesticides in the parks, it's a concern, how are we going to pay for it? But we do have, again, when you do more, you get more. We got a little grant money for it. So please take it away. Let us know how the program's going.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, we started that back in March with our contractor, West Turf, and we've been doing it since March. Continue to do it, and then working with Angela on the grant. And right now, with the funding, we're working on getting that 167, and then it goes just straight into the IPM for us. Offsets the charges from West Turf.
And so to clarify, have we received those funds, or are we eligible? What's the status of the funding?
We got awarded, but we haven't received the funds. Haven't
Okay.
come in quite yet. But we are working. Actually, this week we're working to get those funds.
Okay, so and the activities that we're doing are allowing us to utilize those funds.
Correct.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that update. So, hopefully that's something that we can maybe even receive ongoing funding for, or find a sustainable funding source for. Or as we continue to enhance our, our tree canopy and our native plants and our entire, ecological maps that I know is something that our whole community cares about. Perhaps there's a holistic way that we can manage our public right-of-way as well. The other question I have is, as I've been working with CEA as the vice chair and our city staff on investigating microgrids, so that's the solar with storage, I was wondering what's the status of those opportunities, potentially available lots for us to build new storage and bring in battery, or build new solar and build battery storage as well.
So recently, we've met with Clean Energy Alliance with their local solar program to try and identify some sites out of the current vacant lots that the city owns. There's about 4 of them, but they are already being planned for other city projects. However, we are kind of working with engineering and CEA and their developers to see if there's a way that we could kind of have a collaboration. So things that are like parking lots to be able to add solar to those, or certain lots that are going to be for different improvements, finding a way to add just storage to those sites. So it's in progress. I don't have any major updates currently, but we will be updated.
No, thank you. And I appreciate hearing that there may be sites that are not suitable for solar that would possibly be suitable for storage. I hadn't thought of that before. So thank you for working on that. And the more we can get ahead of those types of programs, the more we could potentially benefit, as CEA may be able to assist us, right, with financing those. And we may have the opportunity to compete with other cities, right? So I think if I am looking at our other cities that are putting forward these types of projects, the more innovative we are, that we get the first rounds of funding, that would be amazing. And I'm also glad that we're going to surpass our EV charger goals. And I had a question about the maintenance process for EV chargers. I've had a couple of folks in the community reach out and say, I regularly use this EV charger and I've had like reoccurring issues where it's like out of order. What's the process for maintenance on that?
So the chargers that we currently have are maintained by the contractor that owns the chargers. So Public Works is contacted typically. We contact them, they come repair it. We've had some issues with the chargers that we have at Broadway. They have been offline quite a bit. So we're working with a different vendor for the 90 that we're putting into our park sites and city sites.
That's good. It's good to know kind of as we are utilizing a technology. I know we've had this discussion with streetlights, right? And I'm sure it's similar with our EV chargers, that when we're using a technology, there might be an optimal design or a tool that we want to use. So if folks do have a problem with EV chargers, what should they do? Call the city, access Vista app, just contact Public Works?
Any of those would work, yep.
Okay. So definitely, if you have an issue with the chargers, let us know. And the bike master plan was created in 2014. I don't recall, has our council ever reviewed that in particular? And would we have the opportunity to review the plan as a whole?
I think we did bring it to council in 2014 when we adopted it, but yeah, that's probably the last time we reviewed the plan. We do have a bike plan in the general plan update, which will reflect an update to that. We're applying for grant funding, though, to further refine that. So the idea is to adopt the general plan with sort of a baseline and then adopt a bike plan that can more refine the network and detail what projects we need to build.
Okay, that would be helpful. I'm kind of looking at the upcoming cycles of planning that we have, and it sounds like we're expecting to update our CAP after our general plan, as you're mentioning. And since the council hasn't reviewed the bike master plan in 10 years at this point, it would be essential for us to take a look at it, and very timely with updating the general plan. So I would ask for that to be included as one of our agenda topics prior to receiving our next CAP update. And I will also say that I absolutely agree with expanding tree canopies and urban forestry programs. And I think that's another example of planning, right? Planning bike and pedestrian infrastructure, and planning out those green spaces, as well as, along with our residential and our commercial. I think when the community is vying for more trees, our response absolutely can be to provide trees for them, but I think it would be efficient and effective for us to start to plan where we would want to see those things. Also agree with decarbonization of our publicly funded facilities, and I liked the shared e-bike idea. I think that that's great. Not so sure if it would be like a like a bike rental program, like like you might see in other cities. Maybe, but I do like the idea of maybe even almost like a bike library that could be exchanged for those short trips, for those short local trips, whether it's for recreation or other purposes. But overall, great work, a lot of activity. We have a lot more planning to do that we're going to be doing in the next coming months and years to continue to meet state requirements and to get ahead of the issue with climate change, so that as much as there is a feeling of despair amongst people with the climate and with weather changes and with just environmental changes and distress globally, I think that our city is doing a great job to respond. And I think one of the things I just want to make sure I say is that we can do everything right when it comes to acting on climate change. But we can't control all the other cities around us. And so one of the things I think we do need to have a conversation in our climate action plan is about preparing for disaster and how we prepare for ecological issues that occur, whether that's flooding, extreme heat, even just the increase of mosquitoes and the changes to the types of mosquito species that have been in the area. I think that these are all signs of climate change, and we want to absolutely be doing our best to meet state guidelines, getting ahead and being a good steward, being a good example as a city. But part of the plan, I think, could also include preparing for emergencies, climate-related emergencies. And I would ask that we take a look at that as well. Thank you all so much. It's been a great workshop. Thank you to the students for viewing and participating. And always please share your comments with us, because the future of our planet absolutely belongs to you. And thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Councilmember Contreras.
Two things. One, have we looked at neighborhood electric vehicles or low-speed vehicles for some of our fleet conversion for city staff? That's a possibility. Two, residential tree giveaway program. Have we had a concerted effort to reach out to HOAs and let them know that they might be eligible for free trees?
Not to HOAs specifically. Most of them are in Shadow Ridge, but we have a master list of those. We can certainly send
Yeah,
it
I
to
think it
them.
might be easy just to connect, shoot an email over, whatever, however. Because I did have someone reach out and ask, and then I asked you, city manager, and you're like, yeah, they qualify. So I think maybe a lot of folks don't know that, hey, my community qualifies for some free trees, and we want some. So I think those are the two other things. Thanks.
Do we deliver these trees?
Yeah, it's the our partner nursery, Devil Mountain Nursery. They deliver them for free.
But we don't plant them, right?
We do not plant them. It's a door-to-door drop-off. There's an issue with insurance and liability and going into people's properties.
Sure. Understand. Well, it'd be a fun thing to promote at some of our public events. Maybe we could bring some trees and offer people to take them. And if people want us to go to the extra expense of delivering them, then they can sign up for the program officially, but almost as a marketing operation to get people aware when we have our events. If we brought, I don't know, a dozen trees to give away, or, it would just bring attention. It's a great presentation. It looks like we're making great progress towards achieving our goals. Appreciate all the staff's hard work on this. And seeing no other requests for comment on this item, Our meeting is concluded tonight. We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.